evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to D.G. Wells Books in La Jolla, California. Tonight we're honored to have Chris Ahrens, the renowned surfing historian and editor, who is here to discuss his masterpiece, his new book called WINDANSEA, Life, Death, Resurrection. Chris Ahrens was first published in Surfer magazine in 1973. Since then, he has written for every major surfing magazine in the U.S. and occasionally served as a magazine editor. He's an award-winning documentarian, a weekly columnist for the Coast News, and a regular contributor to the San Diego Reader. His 4 popular books of surf stories culminate in his latest work, WINDANSEA, Life, Death, Resurrection. Let me say something briefly about the book. It's a quote from Chris. This book about WINDANSEA began in the summer of 1980 when I sat with WINDANSEA local and one of the world's top surfers, Chris O'Rourke. O'Rourke, who died from Hodgkin's disease the following year, told fascinating cinematic tales. While I never published Chris's entire story, I'm glad I kept my notes. 2 decades after O'Rourke's departure, Surfer's Journal requested I do an extensive feature on WINDANSEA. Woody Brown, who first rode WINDANSEA in 1937, served as a trailhead that led to Macmeta Destruction Company, WINDANSEA Surf Club, Butch Van Aartsdalen, Mike Henson, Tom Ordner, Brew Biggs, and finally Chris O'Rourke. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Ahrens.
Oh, jeepers. Sam Armstrong. You know, this is, I honestly feel like I could die right now, and I'd be like, it's all Joe Sigurdson. I mean, I'm looking back here, and I really do want to thank some people. You know, I want to first of all thank my wife Tracy, who stays in the background, literally, figuratively, and who's read every one of my manuscripts, and Stuart Grauer, who I bored with many. I remember Stuart read one, and he goes, "You know what? You're a really honest raconteur." And I go, "That wasn't what I was looking for." But I would have to tell him he was a good surfer, and that wasn't easy either. Dan Dunlap, who has always been there for me. There's Bart O'Rourke. Big hand for Bart. Thank you for coming, Bart. Jim Neary, the Bissell brothers. Rob Greaves. Rob Greaves has just been there since day one. Rob said, "I have no doubt you're going to become a writer one day." And I went, "Yeah, okay, thank you for believing in me." And on and on. Melinda Merriweather, sorry, not to get mixed up with the boxer. But I understand she's got a mean right. Brew Briggs is here, and we have other royalty in the house. There are the Roper twins. Smoking Joe Roper and JoJo Roper, and you work here. Oh, and Ted Burke. Thank you, Burke. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Ted plays a mean harmonica. Yeah, and we have a world champion in the house. Debbie Melville Beecham, we know her as Debbie Melville, and she just made, like, we were just going, yeah, she knows what's going on, and still, we're so stoked to see her here. And Sam Armstrong, thanks for coming, Sam. And Brew Briggs. Brew Briggs was considered probably, a lot of people would say the best surfer at WINDANSEA, some would say ever. And I don't know, could be argued. You guys can argue over a shot of Jameson after the thing's over. I want to thank Pabst Blue Ribbon for sponsoring this event. They didn't, but Tracy tried to find a photo of Dennis Wells. She goes, "Can I get a picture of Dennis holding a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon?" I said, "Try finding a photo of him without one." Not easy. Jim Neary, hey Jim. Cameron Tricky, and you know what? There's Karen and Tom. I mean, so many people here that I am so grateful to know, and thanks for coming. I'm going to read just a little bit from the story, and if you want to hear more, you got to buy the book. Nah, I'm just messing with you. And, I got straight F's in writing, so if my grammar ain't so good. Oh, and Joe Sigurdson, Boys to Men. If you're involved in raising good kids, talk to Joe. He'll help you. So, first of all, take the cover off of this thing. Who said that? That sounds like Drew Briggs back there. I remember riding through the back streets of Windansea. I mean, I'm an inland kook, you know, and I was riding through the back streets of this old beat-up bicycle, 1980, with Brew Briggs, and I thought, wow, I'm really with Brew Briggs. That's so cool. And now he's here and just almost like another guy. So the introduction, the unexplainable feeling. I'm not going to read the whole thing of that, but I just want to read something that I think you'll all agree with. The swells will pass and the great rides, the drops, the turns, and the wipeouts will all be gone. Less than a memory, almost a forgotten dream. You won't really know if they happened at all, but you'll never forget the friends you did it all with. Maybe they were the best you'll ever have. When it's all said and done, perhaps the central experience in surfing is friendship. John Milius. Isn't that true? Okay, and whoa.
Sorry.
Oh, Jake. Windansea is in the eye of the beholder. Like all natural wonders, Windansea packs an emotional wallop. Thousands of years of tribal joy and sadness, along with the great rides and wipeouts of Butch, both Woodies, Simmons, and O'Rourke can still be felt there. Windansea is located at the edge of a resort town in Southern California called La Jolla. Some say La Jolla is Spanish for the jewel, although H-J-O-Y-A, Jolla, not J-O-L-L-A, is the correct spelling for the jewel in Spanish. The first known settlers in the area, the Kumeyaay, called the place, and that's, I can't really pronounce, Kulaksui, land of holes. That may seem appropriate to surfers run out of Windansea by the locals. In all fairness, Land of Holes probably refers to the area's many caves, not its most vigilant residents. La Jolla, as it is now known internationally, is a jewel with many caves and an occasional a-hole. What, me? Thousands of years before the tourists arrived and the coastal mansions were built, the Kumeyaay inhabited the entire regions. Things changed little for the tribe until the Spanish invasion of Alta California in 1769. Those not driven deep into the mountains were sent to work in Mission San Diego, which they destroyed after killing a local padre there in 1775. Continuing through the Mexican period beginning in 1826 and into the early 1900s, the Kumeyaay were forced from their ancestral homes. Before that, their vast territory extended 120 miles from Oceanside, California to Ensenada, Baja. Half as deep as it is wide, the landmass reached inland over 60 miles, from the beaches of La Jolla to the Kumeyaay Mountains. When on the coast, these migratory people paddled their reed canoes out to gather seafood. On their return to shore, they no doubt rode waves. Were they not surfing? The Kumeyaay resembled Polynesians in this, their tule skirts, shell necklaces, and feathered head coverings. As La Jolla's first surfers, they predate foam and fiberglass wave riders by a few thousand years. In 1887, the railroad opened La Jolla to land developers, hunters, fishers, tourists, dealers of opium, and cheap Chinese labor. They and other venture capitalists exploited this wilderness for profit, while the Kumeyaay wondered who gave anyone the right to buy and sell the land. Few kids growing up in La Jolla know any of this. They wanted to surf, party, and be left alone. Yet without realizing it, they had migrated toward Kumeyaay roots, living somewhat tribally, in opposition to an establishment that never attempted understanding them until true stories faded into myth. There is no record of Kumeyaay surfers paddling into the peak at Windansea, so I leave that to your imagination. The following tales, however, are well documented. I have carefully researched them, and in some cases, I lived them. There is no life of I-5. Popular 80s bumper sticker. Quit reading right about there. I want to talk about Windansea because people here know more about it than I do. I've probably surfed it 20 times. And as much as I love it, I spent a lot of time with your brother, Bart, and which was and got to know Jim Neary. And I already knew Tim Bissell. I think Tim was like 15 years old when he was driven to Sunset Surfboards to make boards, and he was like the youngest board maker I ever knew. And his brother Peter was a kneeboarder, and it's not your fault, you know. Like, he couldn't afford a full-size surfboard, I guess. But you know, there's, gosh, you know, the people here just mean so much to me. And Wind and Sea, I realized, was a place like no other place. You know, I've been all over the coast, and I've lived in Australia for 2 years, in New Zealand for a year, and lived a lot of places, and I've never known a place like it. And one of the things I love about it is how you get down to the beach, and it doesn't matter what Daddy does for a living, right? I mean, it's almost a detriment. You know, nobody cares. You know, like, can you surf? Can you tell a joke? Are you friendly? Or you know, you might just get run out of there. And I you know, in a sense, I kind of defend the God, on thin ice here, but I kind of defend the localistic attitude to a point. I mean, it's like the unwritten laws of localism, I think, work better than people that never had sand in their cuffs that are trying to tell us how to live. They're up in Sacramento, right? I mean, what do they know about, like, riding waves and getting sunburned and who should be where and why? I mean, I'm not defending the violent part of it, but like any laws, sometimes things go too far, and the wrong people get hurt by it. I remember years ago, Joel Tudor, when he started surfing Wind and Sea, he told me, man, there's this crazy, tough, not crazy, he said, there's this tough guy out there, and he really scares me, surfing Big Rock. Oh, really? What's his name? He goes, Joe Roper. Yeah, don't mess with that guy. You know, and I never did. You know, and Roper and I have been great friends forever. And when I think of Joe and that rainbow stick coming out of the barrel at Wind and Sea, you know, it's not hard to see how his son Jojo is one of the best big wave riders in the world. And Jojo's here tonight, and if you want to get them to sign your book, I'm sure they'll be glad to. Debbie Melville Beecham is here, and I want Debbie, if you want to stand next to me later and sign books, that would be wonderful. Brew Briggs charges for his autograph. No, he doesn't. Not really. And so, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's supposed to be a book reading, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear, you can ask me questions and I'll answer them. Somebody here will know the answer. I might not know them all, but somebody here will know the answer. Yes, Stuart. Oh, he's not raising his hand. He's flipping me off. Barry Littleton, nice to see you. Barry's been really one of those people that's been really supportive, you know, and getting in there and saying, yeah, and telling me his story. And, you know, I kind of feel in a way like I crashed somebody's high school reunion. Like I showed up and I go like, you know, and I don't know how you guys allow me to be at your high school reunion, but thank you. I'm a kook from Montebello, was the world's most average surfer, and I loved it, and I love all of you. And I guess maybe because I cared, you know, like I care to preserve what you have. Don't ever take it for granted. It's one of the most special places on earth. And I'm so glad to be a part of it and to be invited to your high school reunion. Thank you. You know what? I love you guys. And just thanks. Anybody want to? Yes, Dan Dunlop.
Do you have some stories on those photos behind you?
Yeah, some of these photos on Wind and Sea. I mean, some of these. Anybody know who this guy is? Who said Dickie Moon? Robbie Greaves said Dickie Moon. You know, you don't win anything, Robbie, but if you stick around, like, people will say hi to you and pretend like they're not bummed that you're here. No. Rob Greaves said, keep riding, just keep doing it. I'm going, and my wife hates him to this day. No, not really. Not really. But no, that's Dickie Moon. And this was probably taken 64, 65. It was taken by Tom Keck. And I have honestly never seen anybody put a surfboard on rail like that, a board like that, with a turn like that. It's quite something. And here's Mike Henson. Mike Henson. Melinda Merriweather is here. This photo of Mike. And Mike was, a lot of people don't know this, but I would say Mike did more for the rail of the surfboard than anybody in history. Starting with these boards right here, which were called knifed rails, which caused people, he made a board, he said, I made it too thin, and he was able to really penetrate and really, is this too surfy?
No.
Okay. But of course you'd say no.
She said it.
Oh, she said it. Thank you. Point to each other. You must be friends. So, and he went on from there, and the down rail surfboard, Jerry Lopez says that it was because of that style board that we were able to ride the tube like we could. And I think Joe and JoJo Roper have benefited from that, and they'll probably tell you the same thing. So Mike is I just saw him the other day and put up some prayers for him.
Yeah.
He's, I've learned to understand him better and really love that guy. He's really a great part of this history, and of course, star of the Endless Summer. And even if it was just, if that was the only thing on your resume, it'd be quite a resume. Let's see. Of course, this photo of Chris O'Rourke means so much to me. The one with the yellow helmet was at a time I was going through probably the worst time of my life. And I came home to my house and everything's cleared out of my house. My child's gone. Everything's gone, but the phone still works. And I'm sitting there alone crying. And it's this guy that I'd had words with when he was 14 and told me to leave the water. And he goes, hey, this is Chris O'Rourke. I go, yeah, okay, like life just got worse, right? I'm thinking, like, what are you going to scream at me for, But he said, what are you doing right now? And I told him. He said, stay right where you are. Well, he had a piece of his skull missing. About that much of his skull was missing at the time. And I remember I'd come over to Bart's house and we talked and Chris is like, the slightest hit to his head could kill him. 15 minutes later, he's at my front door. He goes, get your stuff, come with me. Gets it. I thought we were going to die on the ride home. The guy was a crazy driver. Scariest thing in the world is driving in a car with him. But so we get to his house. Timmy was like, I don't know, a year old maybe. And he takes Timmy and he puts Timmy in his room and stays up with me till 3 a.m, just holding on to me. He goes, I know how tough it is, and I think and that's really one of the lessons of this book is you don't know what you're looking at sometimes. Like somebody can be really tough. Like there's a guy in the book, Brud McGowan. I never got to know Brud, but people that really knew him say he was really a big-hearted guy, and if you were on the receiving end of that left hook, you might not think so. But a lot of times people that are rugged like that and can be something more. And I found out Chris O'Rourke had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. Nobody in my life has ever done what he did for me. And so, it's like with respect that Makoni Apana, Shakabra, and here's a picture of Chris right here. And the black and white photo, just next to it, that pretty good sized wave with that guy laying out a turn. Well, that's 14-year-old Brew Briggs. And gosh, what were you doing at 14 years old? I was trying to throw a ball up in the air and see if I could catch it without it hitting me in the head. And Brew has become a really great friend of mine. And Brew is one of the people that made this story possible. It's really his story, it really the second part of the story goes into like Jim Neary and Tad Hodson and George Taylor. George wasn't able to get in the door tonight not for anything bad. He just had a dog with him. But just above Brew is probably the most famous person to ever surf Windansea, Butch Van Aertsdalen. And Joe Roper tells the story of how he and Hanky Warner are going down it's Joe's first time in Hawaii, and he's going to charge pipeline, right? And so they're hitchhiking, and up comes this guy Butch Van Aertsdalen, and he knew Hank Warner, and he and Hanky were real close friends. There's a story of Hank was the Grimmy, Butch was the man, and so it was a big thing for Joe Roper to meet Butch and know that he was from Windansea, and he carried on the tradition, you know. Gosh, it's just great. Now there's what was that young woman's name that I met? She's 16 years old. I just saw some photos of her surfing. She and her brother. Well, I think they left, but God, Windansea surfers, right? You know, like not a lot of them make the big time, but they do in our minds. So that wave up just above Butch, that's Boomer. Brian Munoz took that photo, and it looks like it's going to take out the whole city. And there's right next to that, I believe that's Simmons, that sunset just to the left, sunset in the sunset. And everybody's favorites. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't love Tom Ortner. So lower left corner is Tom Ortner, and that's a Jeff Devine photo, and I just love that photo. It says so much about surfing, the look on his face, how fit he is, you know, and just this beautiful, humble guy that rode Windansea. I mean, he was one. I mean, there were several people, you know, that you could name. Dale Dobson, Mike Henson, Butch Van Aertsdalen, Tom Ortner, John Close, right? Yeah, Chris O'Rourke, Brewster Briggs. Did I always say Brewster Briggs? Ron McLeod. What's that? David Rulo. Yeah, David Rulo is. Yeah, and I guess he got out of there pretty early, you know. But Rulo and Close and Soprezio and a lot of those guys, they were all proteges. Oh, look who's here! Look who's back! They were all proteges of Mike Henson, and Henson took them under their wings. And anybody that was mentored by him really learned a lot about surfing, because he was not just an artist and a great surfer. He was I would say he was a scientist of the sport. When he talked to me about golf, he said, I'd take a golf ball apart just to see what was inside of it. He got into things, you know. He understood things. And once again, I'm just, there was somebody else that I didn't really know and didn't get along with that well, and I found out later, God, look deeper. You know, Windansea itself is a story of looking deeper. When you first look at it, I mean, when I first looked at it, I go, look at that flat, mushy peak out there breaking near shore, and paddled out, and I go, it's not a mushy peak, and it's not close to shore. It's a long paddle, and it breaks hard. You know, and that was just like the people there. You know, the people there, the first time I went there, I just went like, these guys don't seem to like me very much. But after a while, some of my best friends have come to know people in that area, and it's just good to know.
Chris, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The appearance of Tom Wolfe and journalist from the East Coast who showed up and his reception.
Yeah, Tom. Okay. Yeah, Tom Wolfe. I think that Andy Warhol got a better reception than Tom Wolfe. Andy Warhol bought 2 surfboards from Carl Ekstrom. Carl's got the check, and it was like for $334 for 2, and he was going to buy. Warhol understood that making surfboards was an art more than a craft, and he was going to do a show in New York, and right after that he got shot. So he bought these 2 boards from Ekstrom, and Robbie Greaves used to rub out, he's probably telling that story right now, he used to rub out boards for Ekstrom. He goes, he was too much of a perfectionist for me, I couldn't handle it. Nobody could. He was like tough to work with only because he demanded so much. But anyway, so Tom Wolfe decides, I think I'll go to California and do something on this surf culture that seems to be happening. Well, it didn't go so well. He got there, and according to Carl Ekstrom, he took a look at the shack and Butch, and and Pat Curran are sitting under the shack, probably having a few Pabst Blue Ribbons at about 6 beers in, and Curran was heard to say, if that guy comes over here, we're going to pants him. So from what I heard, everybody thought he was a narc, you know, like who goes to the beach with a white suit and a fedora? You know, I mean, well, Bart O'Rourke used to work at the Ascot shop, so maybe he did once in a while. no, I know you didn't. But he wrote this story, you know, and it was, everything about it was wrong, even including the part of a Rolling Stones song. He gets, I can't get no satisfaction. He calls it, I ain't got no satisfaction. I mean, how do you call yourself a journalist and get a song of the Rolling Stones hit song wrong?
He's a dork.
Tom Wolfe is a dork, yeah. And so the great part of that story to me is that Bill Decker, I was hoping he'd be here tonight. Bill Decker got a call from, I think it was Vanity Fair, and they said, hey, we were doing a story, you know, that's 10 years after the Pump House Gang. We want to do a story on it. Would you do the story? And he goes, we need a photo. And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll do a photo. So he went up and spray painted, he and the Whale. You guys probably, some of you guys knew the Whale. Eric Damron, right? He spray painted Tom Wolfe as a dork on the Pump House. He took the photo, sends it to Vanity Fair, and then a couple weeks later, he gets a call and that says, we want you to come to New York because Tom Wolfe they're doing this thing on this movie, The Right Stuff. He's writing that. So he gets there, and Tom Wolfe is there, and Tom Wolfe approaches him and talks to him, and he goes, where are you from? He goes, I'm from La Jolla. And he goes, oh, you are? And he goes, well, you know, I got the funniest, my agent sent me this crazy photo of the Pump House, and it says Tom Wolfe is a dork. And he goes, who would do such a thing? I mean, how's that for irony? It's pretty crazy. But I mean, it's, you know, it really, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I feel like I'm kicking the superior. You know, the guy's a fantastic writer, and he was young, and I've learned to forgive him, sort of. But I just, you know, to me, all it takes to have the right stuff is to have a pair of trunks and a surfboard and a bar of wax. Good enough. See the photo of the cars on the beach? Yeah. I guess that was taken in about 76. John Foster took that photo, and people look at it and they go, how did that happen? Did anybody, you know, there's cars on the beach, I think, were kind of a tradition at WINDANSEA. And one of the people that started it was, did anybody know Tiny Brain? Linda knew Tiny Brain. Well, Tiny Brain had the idea that he wanted to make a reef at WINDANSEA to make the lifts better. So he took Billy Graham's car, now Billy Graham, not the evangelist, mind you, and Billy Graham went up to L's Market to get something to eat. Well, he's gone. Tiny takes it, puts the thing in neutral, and plows it into the shore break. And Ekstrom comes up to him and goes, you know, Graham was a tough guy. And so he goes, I don't know if you should have done that. You know, he's going to be really mad, and you're going to get it. And he goes, yeah, I'd be mad for a little while, but when he sees how good the surf is, he's going to thank me. I don't think it ever got that far. And this looks like something all the cop cars, that looks like something out of that Mac Meta might have had something to do with. Anybody here ever been to a Mac Meta convention? Barry Littleton, Melinda Merriweather, anyone else? They just, nobody wants to admit to it. Oh, Debbie, do you want to tell us about it, Debbie? No. It's okay, the statute of limitations is up.
It's just a lot of energy.
Just a lot of energy. Yeah, I would say so. Doug Moranville told me a story about when they would go. Well, actually, John Close told me that he would go up with Rakestraw, and Rakestraw had a cannon, and he would fire it off the cliff at the tuna boats. You know, just for fun, not to try to hit them, just to kind of make a little wave. And Moranville says that they used to drive. They would get old cars and they'd push them off the cliff at Black's, and then they would have a dummy in the car and they'd pull them out and go, well, we could save them, and the news would come down and just pretty harmless kind of stuff. I mean, people would be incarcerated for life now if you did one of those things, right? I mean, and that's another thing. I don't want kids to go crazy and drive their parents' car into the surf or anything like that, or steal the leaf of your parents' dining room table and write "Go home" on it. Tourists go home, right? Yeah, which. Jim Neary is laughing right now. Jim Neary had a table, and Chris O'Rourke decided, well, you know what? I'm tired of these guys coming down to the beach and surfing here. Wrote "Tourists Go Home" on the table and hung it up over the. And then there's just the stories of the life that people lived, and it's just beautiful to me to see a culture that grows up organically, separate from the mainstream, and people get it wrong when they think it's some sort of a gang or something like that. It's like, I would say it's more of a, I mean, I don't want to use the term, I don't want to be corny with it, but it's a little more tribal, I think, than anything else. You guys would paint your faces up with war paint when and what are the characteristics of a tribe? You hang together, you would die for the members of the tribe. And you're suspicious of outsiders. You keep people like at bay. Like people have to pay their dues. You don't just show up. And I think there's a lot of good in that. And once again, there's some abuses in it too. But I found just really. My time at WINDANSEA, my short time at WINDANSEA, was such a blessing to me. I really enjoyed it. And also, do you guys, everybody here know Dennis Wills? Well, he makes light of it, but Dennis is the best dumpster surfer in the world. The best surfer ever to ride. The only person here I know that's ridden Girard Street. Okay. Should I tell the story? Yeah. Sure. Okay. Did PBR have anything to do with that?
A lot.
A lot, yeah. Well, Dennis is fond of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, and one day he got the idea to fill up a dumpster with water, and he put a canoe in the dumpster, and opened up the dumpster and rode down Girard Street. So he's got photos to prove it. The great Dennis Wills. Gee. Well, gosh, I'm amazed. I can't believe it. I'm standing where Tom Wolfe was never here. No, but some of the Gary Schneider, Norman Mailer,
Sean Penn,
Gore Vidal, yeah. So Oliver Stone. Why didn't they come? Why didn't they come tonight?
Chris Ahrens.
Yeah, thank you. It's been quite a ride, and as people often say, I want to thank this person and that person, but there's no way in the world I could have done it without all of you. And Jeff Dowler came up to me. He called me one day and he goes, "What's this? Why are you writing about gangsters all the time? What's your problem?" And I went, "Well, I was interested in it." He goes, "Yeah, but you're a surfer. You've done all these surf books. Do a surf book." I go, "I don't want to do a surf book. I'm done doing surf books. I'm tired of it. I don't surf much anymore, and I don't want to do it." And he pestered me a little bit more, so I called Brew Briggs and I said, "Brew, what do you think?" And Brew goes, "Absolutely not." And then we called back, and Brew probably had a Pabst Blue Ribbon. I think Pabst Blue Ribbon's the reason for all of this, really. He might have had a Pabst Blue Ribbon or two. And he said, "Yeah, come over, let's talk." And then went over to Tim Basel's house and met the boys, and the 70s crew was all there, and that was fantastic, and they tell stories. Tim Basel tells a great story about the dearly departed Jeff Junkins, how he decided Junkins was one of those tough guys, right? And so I hope I get it right, Tim. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but So he gets this guy called Skylab. They called him Skylab. Remember Skylab? Skylab, he always fell, right? So they called him, the Skylab came crashing back to Earth. So somebody somebody names him Skylab, probably Basil. And and everybody got sick of him. He was dealing drugs in the parking lot, and I guess he was competition to somebody. So they took his took his board. Junkins takes his board and breaks it over his knee, takes all his stuff, throws it off the cliff. And so people think that's the end of it. As well, Skylab comes back with a gun, as the story goes, and points it at Junkins. And Junkins is not a guy you want to mess with. He's did a few tours. He was a soldier of fortune, did a few tours of duty in Vietnam. And as the story goes, the guy goes, okay, like, he's mad, and he points the trigger at him, and apparently Junkins grabs the guy's wrist and turns it back at him, and the trigger's cocked. He goes, well, pull the trigger now, asshole. So anyway, read more about that later.
For 60 years, I've been wanting to know who smashed Hot Curl.
Who smashed it? Well, it talks about it. Who smashed Hot Curl? They always thought that it was some guys from some bikers from El Cajon, but it turns out it was probably who's the guy that did the cartoon, the Hot Curl cartoon? It was Dormer. Mike Dormer said that they figured out later that it was Butch Van Aertsdale, and probably once again Pabst Blue Ribbon plays into it for the better and the worse, and that was that's what we're told. Yeah.
Wow.
So you guys, Hot Curl, as you know, was a Donnell Horde was the top sculptor in the country, and if you go down to Balboa Park, you'll see these beautiful Donnell Horde sculptures. There's one called The Lady from Tehuantepec. It's just gorgeous. Well, these guys had an idea. Lee Teacher and Mike Dormer had an idea. Well, let's do a Hot Curls statue. So he said they got a mop and a bucket and about 300 pounds of cement, and they made this horrible thing in Donnell Horde's yard. And then they put it up, and everybody loved it. They put up and it's called Hot Curl, and you can still see the footprint of Hot Curl down at WINDANSEA. And then the city took it out, and they had a Save the Statue movement. And so they saved the statue, they brought Hot Curl back in, they put it back up again, and then the greatest surfer at WINDANSEA decides, enough of that, and beats the thing up. So that's how I heard the story. How close did people actually live to surf at WINDANSEA? Most of the people that I knew that surfed WINDANSEA regularly lived in town. Probably not too far away. I mean, when I stayed with Chris, it was on Bonaire, and just that seemed like it was inland compared to where Oscar lived. He was just right there. He was on Nautilus, yeah. And the Burlaskis, the Burlaski house, which was, I wasn't around then, but everybody hung out there on the wall, and the story of when the Cajoners came in, and I talked to Mark about, you guys all told the story. Everybody had their own take on that story. So there were these guys came in, and they got run out of town, and Mark Burlaski jumped on this guy. This guy came up on a ladder or something and jumps on the wall, and Burlaski knocks him off the wall and jumps on him, and he goes to hit him. He said the guy must have been a wrestler because he flipped me over and picked up this big rock, and he's going to smash my head with this big piece of concrete. And Michael Johnson grabbed the guy and saved him. Yeah. Anybody seen Michael Johnson recently? Or? You saw him about a month ago? Doing great. I love hearing that. There was a question about the first Woody in the book. There were two. There's Woody Ekstrom, and they were almost contemporaries. Woody Ekstrom started surfing in 1943 and also has crazy stories of his own. But Woody Brown is the guy, top row, all the way to the left on the red surfboard. So he came from the East in 1936, 37, And he was a glider pilot, never seen a surfboard, didn't know anything about surfing. And his wife would basically slingshot him off the cliff at Black's. Like, well, that's a 300-foot drop, right? And so he set a world's record, 23 hours in this glider. And one day he crashed on the beach. He found a piece of driftwood, and he got on it, and he just kind of rode the whitewash in. And he goes, oh, that's kind of fun. So I went home, and he made, without ever having seen a surfboard, he made a surfboard 14 pounds, like an airplane wing. And the guys, Don Oakey and some of the fellas at WINDANSEA said it's the best surfboard they'd ever seen. And he took everybody. Don Oakey said he made brave men out of all of us. So he would ride anything. You know, didn't matter. You know, just rode waves as big as they got. Went to Hawaii. After his wife died, he went to Hawaii, invented the catamaran there. So he went to the top of 3 sports. He told Rob Greaves. Rob Greaves did a lot of interviewing on him for his movie Liquid Stage. And he told Rob Greaves, he said, you know, I went to the top of 3 sports and there was nothing there. So there's another lesson, right? I mean, what are you really doing it for? You know, like, I mean, it's surf, have fun, enjoy your life, love the people you're with. And yeah. There's one of the most stunning photos in the book. Everybody stops on it when they see it. Is a photo by Don Balsh of WINDANSEA in the twilight, and there's nobody out, which is really stunning, you know. And it's a great photo. But he he wants to know more about about Woody Ekstrom writing La Jolla Cove, when at that time his friend was Bill Eisenhower, and Eisenhower was it was Townsend Cromwell, and he worked at Scripps. And the waves were recorded at 33 feet. And he surfed WINDANSEA. He surfed the Cove that day, and it broke his board into splinters. You can see some of the wooden boards up here. One of those boards, he's in one of those photos. It's right over there. He's the guy in the center. That board was broken into toothpicks. And he was barely able to get up the stairs. He found these little notches in the stairs. Apparently the Kumeyaay or someone had put these notches in the stairs where he could get up. And fortunately, so he ran up the stairs, the waves licking at his back, made it to the top. His mother, when he got home, his mother nearly fainted. She'd heard he had died. And but the details of it are really something. I was so fortunate to have talked with Woody about that story and getting that whole story in detail. It was really, really an amazing time. So what do we got, Dennis? Ted gonna play the harmonica?
I need another can of PBR. That's yours.
Oh, I've had. I'm strictly Jameson, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all. You know, it's been just so. Once again, I really want to thank everybody, not just for coming, but for inviting me into your stories, telling me your stories, and trusting me with one of the great surf stories of all time, which is the story of WINDANSEA. And stay tuned for Don Balsh's book. Should be coming out in who knows when, but it's going to be something. The guy has lineups like you can't believe, like some of the best. But if you ever see those photos of Rincon, you know, and you just go, oh my gosh, look at that wave. He took the photo. Well, thank you, folks.
Thank you.